Hi, this is Morgan Jaremus with RT Book Reviews, and today I'm joined by Joanna Philbin, who writes young adult stories. I've got The Rules of Summer here, which is the next one that's coming out this summer. And before we get started on this one, though, I really want to ask about your daughter's series.
Yes.
It has been like such a huge success, and I think one of the reasons is because you write about these teenage girls, and they're all famous because of their parents. They were all born into this Hollywood world of fame. I have to ask you, you yourself were definitely born into this world also, your father being Regis, of course. Did you take a lot of your experiences growing up and put it into that series?
I did, but of course these girls are living in a different time, and they're the daughters of, one is the daughter of a supermodel, the other is the daughter of a pop star. I don't really know what it's like to be the daughter of a supermodel or a pop star, but I was able to take some of the emotional experiences I had as a teen and transfer them, onto these characters. And just that feeling of having, one foot in the world of the normal world of high school and crushes and dealing with teachers and friendships, and then also going out at night sometimes with your parents and having them be recognized, and knowing that you weren't exactly just sort of the anonymous, ordinary high schooler,
Right.
So it wasn't quite taking my life and putting it into these books, but it was close.
Well, I have to say they are so ridiculously popular, especially around RT offices. We've actually talked about them before, and it's such a wish fulfillment to kind of be able to get a glimpse of that world, because like 99% of us will never really be in that world. Probably 99.9% of us. But when we pick up a book in the series, like you really feel it, and it's so much fun. Like there's drama too, but there's a lot of fun that goes into that.
Yeah, they were so much fun to write, and you're right, they do have some serious undercurrents, because each girl's really trying to find herself, and when you're 14, that's a really big deal, and of course, when I was 14, I took things maybe a little too seriously sometimes. So there is some drama, but they were so much fun, and they really allowed me, I live in Los Angeles, and it was so great to write about New York, and they're really about New York and growing up in the city and where I grew up, and it was just a wonderful way to sort of transport myself back here, and I loved it. Yeah, it was a great ride.
Well, you're back in New York, or at least your book is back in New York, set in New York.
Yes, I can't get away from New York.
This time, Rules of Summer, you also have a little bit of wish fulfillment, because you have your character Rory, who's definitely, she's not a privileged person. She works very hard, even though, she has a single mother, and even though her mother's supposed to be supporting her, it kind of oftentimes goes the other way, where she supports her mother. And she has a chance at 17 to move to the Hamptons for the summer.
Yes.
And I have to say, one who's never been to the Hamptons before.
What?
I know, right?
Are you kidding?
It is
3 hours from here, Morgan. Go.
I know. But it's just like, just hearing about it, like my eyes, reading the book, my eyes would just get wider and wider when you heard about these amazing, places to stay and these houses and being right on the water. It sounds amazing.
Yes,
Is it as beautiful as you write about?
It is. It really is heaven on earth, and it's one thing I really miss living in California, because there's no equivalent to it at all. People don't go away for the weekend in LA, really.
Right.
And I came up with the story for this book in June, and June in Los Angeles is not a lot of, it's not summery at all. It's cold, it's gloomy, they call it June gloom.
Yeah.
And I was really missing New York and missing that whole culture of going away on the weekend and going out to the beach. And where I would do that growing up was East Hampton. We never had our own house there, but I had friends who had houses there growing up, and I would go out and stay with them. And then there were summers where my family would rent a house for a couple of weeks. And it was like being in another world, and just, and it was where a lot of, teenage drama went down for me.
Lots of drama.
Lots of drama.
Lots of boy drama.
Lots of boy drama. And it was like this place where everyone from New York would gather, and you'd see all your friends from the city, on the beach at night, and or run into them during the day at the beach. And it was just, it was really an idyllic kind of summer environment. And I wanted to write about that. I wanted to write something really fun and escapist and something that you could read at the beach or at the pool. And I thought, where better to set this book than East Hampton?
Okay, now when you first start the book, you think that it's going to be Rory's story exclusively. She's a heroine.
Right.
You're rooting for her right away. You like her right away because she is such an honest, hard worker. You really want her to succeed, even though she's thrown into kind of this rich world where she doesn't know quite what she's about. You're like, oh, this is going to be great. We're going to learn how she learns and grows and does all these things. And then all of a sudden, you get blindsided by the second character, Isabel. And at first, I have to admit, I didn't necessarily like her.
That's okay. You're not supposed to like her right away. It's all right. Yeah.
Because she is the daughter of the people that Rory's staying with. She's very privileged,
Yes.
very wealthy, and I'm going to say it, she's snobby. She really is. She cares
is.
about the car you drive and the shoes you wear, and all of those other things really matter to her. Those are how she judges you. And was it weird kind of putting her and Rory together because they are such different people?
Yes, well, I knew I wanted to write about two characters. Each of the daughters' books are really about one girl. And for this, I wanted to write about two characters and tell the story from each of their points of view. And so I knew the girls had to be diametrically opposed, in every way. And but Isabel is interesting because there's a rebel in her that's dying to come out. She's been brought up in this very cloistered world of boarding school and her East Hampton country club and sort of having not the best values, but inside she just wants to break free from it all. And well, I don't want to give anything away. We'll get to how she does that. But and then Rory is, like Isabel's the ultimate insider in a sense, and Rory's the ultimate outsider because she's never been out there. She's never left
such a good description.
Yeah.
It's so true. And they feel it.
Right. And I think everyone can relate to actually being both of those girls in some ways, and so Rory is really kind of got her nose pressed to the glass. She's living with this family, and she's not really part of the staff, but she kind of is. She's sort of the errand girl. So she's her aunt is the housekeeper, so she's kind of staying there as a guest of her aunt's, but she's also going to be somewhat like kind of working for the family at the same time. And so she's in a very precarious situation in this house. And then she and Isabel sort of hate each other on sight.
Which isn't surprising because they are so different. I think what surprised me the most as the book went on, and of course you really get invested in both of their lives. You really, they both make connections with guys, and you can't wait to find out how those separate relationships are going to work out. But one thing, as I went further and further in the book, one thing that really stood out to me is they seem like such different characters, but on the inside, they have the same insecurities. They have the same, wanting to be authentically themselves and not necessarily being able to. There's two scenes in the book, and both of them deal with these guys I keep talking about. One of them is, of course, Rory asks her guy, why me? Because she honestly, she's like, I'm not wealthy, I'm not this, I'm not that. Why me? And in another scene, Isabel asks her guy kind of the same question, that she is wealthy, but she doesn't see herself as necessarily a good person that's always made the right choices. And it's interesting for these such different characters to have that same emotion inside of them that I'm not good enough.
Yes, yeah. It's funny. I actually hadn't put that together, that they actually have that same moment. And it's true. I think, I mean, it comes sort of from different places. But yeah, I think that, well, one thing I really loved about the daughters was showing how these girls who looked like they had it all, and who came from such privilege and who had every reason to feel confident, all of that stuff is just it's sort of superficial. It's exterior stuff, and on how we can feel on the inside can be very, very different than how it looks on the outside, and. So it's interesting that Isabel, even with all of the trappings of like all of her wealth and her beauty and her confidence, she meets this one guy who she can't control and who's sort of an unknown quantity, and it makes her terribly insecure. And Rory, she has those insecurities because she has a crush on Isabel's brother. And so she has to deal not only with this golden guy who can have anyone he wants, but can he actually return her affection, because she's sort of working for his family. So they're both coming at it from different places, but it's the same sense of, am I good enough? Am I like enough for this guy?
And I wasn't necessarily expecting them to become as good of friends as they did, but that's something that you do. It starts so delicately at first. It starts with doing somebody a favor. It starts with being there when they need a shoulder to cry. It starts so slowly, but then you really show how that can happen, that it doesn't matter where that other person came from, that if you are genuinely interested in caring in them, you can make that connection with somebody else.
Right. It was a very delicate transition that I needed to make, because they do dislike each other so much at the beginning.
They literally want to spend the entire summer. They both decide, I will never see her the rest of the summer. Right. I will hide in my bedroom while she is out there, kind of thing. Like, really?
Right. And that can, as we all know, if you don't hit it off with someone right away, I mean, it can be so brutal to have to, hang around someone at summer camp. We've all had that experience. Oh my God, this girl's in my bunk. What am I going to do? I'm going to die. And then slowly they're sort of thrown together. Isabel they're both 17, and Rory can drive, but Isabel can't. She's a terrible driver, and the only person who isn't afraid to get in the car with her is Rory. And so
she's still afraid.
She's
but
still
she does
afraid,
it anyway.
but she does it anyway, and she doesn't feel like she can say no. And they slowly become friends while Rory's teaching her how to drive, even though she's not really qualified to do that. But so it was really fun as a writer to write those, like, it's almost like a love story in a sense,
like best friend love story.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I love writing about friendship, and when I was growing up, I went to an all-girls school, and my female friends they meant the world to me, and they still do, and that was something I really I felt like I did in each of the daughters' books. Was I wanted to make friendship, and make that paramount, make that really part of the storyline in each book, and have these girls like each other, So even though these girls in this book start out not liking each other, eventually they become very close. Yeah.
Well, I have to ask, the next project you're working on, are we going to see some friends?
Oh, yes. Well, it's actually going to be a sequel to this book.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, my God. You have to tell me, because I just finished this one, so you got to tell me.
I don't want to give anything away, Morgan.
Oh.
Just can't do it. But
do you have a title for it yet?
Not yet. I just finished writing it. But it's going to be the next summer in these girls' lives. So what happens next summer, and I just don't want to give anything away.
I completely understand.
Yes.
Even though I can't wait to read it, I do understand. Anybody that wants to spend the Hamptons, or at least part of the Hamptons this summer, Rules of Summer is going to be out in June, and it is a super fun book about a place that a lot of us will never visit. Although now that I've read about it, I'm probably going to go.
Visit. Yes, you have to.
I'm going to go to the Hamptons. I'm going to do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Morgan. It was great to be here.
You too.
Take care.